In some ways, the green dragon is the most dragon of dragons. Pity that Tiamat gets credit for them. Quote from Fizban the Fabulous. How you doing, everybody? Hope you're having a great day and welcome back to another video. In this video, I'm going to be going over the green dragons from Dungeons & Dragons and Pathfinder. I've already done a video on the white and black dragons from both Dungeons & Dragons and Pathfinder, so if you want to watch them, a link to those videos will be in the description below and in the cards that should be popping up anytime soon. And before we continue on with the video, let's get the YouTube spiel out of the way. Leave a like, subscribe, comment down below. If you have any suggestions, leave them in the comments. And if you have any questions, leave them in the comments too. And let's get on with the video. Green dragons are one of the 5 chromatic dragons, which include black, blue, green, red, and white. They are known for their cunning and treacherous nature, and their love for trickery and deceit. The monster manual states that they are the most cunning and treacherous of the true dragons. Green dragons use misdirection and trickery to get the upper hand against their enemies. Nasty-tempered and thoroughly evil, they take special pleasures in subverting and corrupting the good-hearted. In the ancient forest they roam, green dragons demonstrate an aggression that is often less about territory than it is about gaining power and wealth with as little effort as possible. The bestiary describes them as the most contemplative of the chromatic dragons as well as the most approachable. The key to understanding green dragons is to understand their obsession with knowledge and self-discipline. Any careful approach that takes advantage of a green dragon's fixation may end in a diplomatic outcome, but any misstep or slight can provoke a savage attack. Like most chromatic dragons, green dragons do not suffer fools, and the threshold for what they consider foolish is very low. Now that we have an idea on who they are, let's take a look at what they look like. In D&D, the green dragons are described as having a curved jawline and the crest that begins near its eyes and continues down its spine. Reaching full height just up behind their skull, a green dragon has no external ears but bears leathery spiked plates that run down the side of its neck. When they are wormlings, their scales are a shade of green so dark that they appear nearly black. But as the dragon ages, its scales grow larger and lighter, turning into shades of forest, emerald, and olive green, which helps it blend into its surroundings. Their legs are longer in relation to its body than any other type of dragon, which enables it to easily pass over underbrush and forest debris when it walks. With its equally long neck, an older green dragon can peer over the rooftop of trees without rearing up. Unlike the dragons that I've covered previously, the Pathfinder counterpart does not resemble its D&D counterpart. The Pathfinder version of the green dragon appears to have a muscular frame with a large snout horn that dominates its face. This horn starts out small but continues to grow throughout the dragon's life. The horn splits into 2 near the top. Their horns resemble the horns of the blue dragons from D&D. Unlike the D&D version, the Pathfinder green dragon has a larger and stockier build. Their necks are not as long, and in comparison, they seem to appear in darker shades of green than the D&D version. Now let's take a look at their lairs. In D&D, the Monster Manual and Fizban's Treasury of Dragons state that the green dragons love to make their lair in verdant places such as jungles, bayous, pine forests, or anywhere with abundant vegetation that they can shape according to their desires. A perpetual fog hangs in the air in a legendary green dragon's wood, carrying an acrid whiff of the creature's poison breath. The moss-covered trees grow close together except where winding pathways trace their way like a maze into the heart of the forest. The light that reaches the forest floor carries an emerald dragon's cast, and every sound seems muffled. An older green dragon might indulge in horticulture, cultivating the local flora as benefits their individual aesthetic. However, most green dragons are content to either excavate beneath trees and nestle among the roots, or make lairs inside trees large enough to be hollowed out without compromising their structure. While they prefer forest, they actually make their lair in giant trees or in caves that are in a sheer cliff or hillside, hidden from prying eyes. Some seek out cave mouths concealed behind waterfalls or partially submerged caverns that can be accessed through lakes or streams. Others conceal the entrance to their lairs with vegetation. Green dragons take great interest in woodland settlements when seeking lair sites. Though they are fully capable of modifying forest to their own liking, they find it easier and vastly more entertaining to take something belonging to smaller and weaker beings. Now let's discuss their hordes. In D&D, Fizban's Treasury of Dragons gives us a generic guide on what a horde will consist of depending on the dragon's age, but each type of dragon has its preferred treasure that they covet. For green dragons, there are gems and jewelry whose palettes reflect their chosen forest environments, favoring vibrant colors and bursts of floral brilliance such as emeralds, wood carvings, musical instruments, and sculptures of humanoid subjects. The monster manual also states that they also like to collect sentient creatures that it bends to its will, including significant figures such as popular heroes, well-known sages, and renowned bards. In Pathfinder, the bestiary describes their horde as typically well-kept, organized, and filled with tomes of lore and scrolls of magic, along with antiquities they collect for their own inscrutable reasons. Before we move on, let's talk about the creatures that the dragon is likely to have around its lair. The monster manual suggests goblinoids, atacaps, attins, kobolds, orcs, and yuan-ti, but they like corrupting and bending elves to their will. I personally don't know what beef green dragons have against elves, as the only reason I can think of is that they prefer the same territory, and the elves are long-lived enough that the dragon can see its tricks and machinations come to fruition. Fizban's Treasury of Dragons provides more creatures in terms of creature connections, and some of them are pseudo-dragons, satyrs, green hags, oni, and giant apes. Unlike its D&D version, the bestiary for both the first and second edition of Pathfinder does not state anything on the creature that will be found in a dragon's lair, but second edition does state that the green dragons prefer an isolated and quiet life, leading me to believe that they don't have any creatures in their lair, or if they do, they are likely to be the type that does not disturb the green dragon, as it do not face its wrath. Now let's take a look at their lair actions. On the initiative count of 20, losing initiative ties, the dragon takes a lair action to cause one of the following effects. The dragon can't use the same effect 2 rounds in a row. The first is grasping roots, and vines erupt in a 20-foot radius centered on a point on the ground that the dragon can see within 120 feet of it. The area becomes difficult terrain, and each creature there must succeed on a DC 15 strength saving throw or be restrained by the roots and vines. A creature can be freed if it or another creature takes an action to make a DC 15 strength check and succeeds. The roots and vines wilt away when the dragon uses this lair action again or when the dragon dies. And the next one is a wall of tangled brush bristling with thorns springs into existence on a solid surface within 120 feet of the dragon. The wall is up to 60 feet long, 10 feet high, and 5 feet thick, and it blocks line of sight. When the dragon appears, each creature in that area must make a DC 15 dexterity saving throw. A creature that fails the save takes 18 or 4d8 piercing damage and is pushed 5 feet out of the wall space, appearing on whichever side the wall wants it. A creature can move through the wall a bit slowly and painfully. For every 1 foot a creature travels through the wall, it must spend 4 feet of movement. Furthermore, a creature in the wall space must take a DC 15 dexterity saving throw once each round it's in contact with the wall, taking 18 or 4d8 piercing damage on a failsafe or half as much damage on a successful one. Each 10-foot section of the wall has an AC of 5, 15 hit points, and vulnerability to fire damage, resistance to bludgeoning and piercing damage, and immunity to psychic damage. The wall sinks back into the ground when the dragon uses its lair action again or when the dragon dies. And the last one mentioned in the monster manual is magical fog billows around one creature that the dragon can see within 120 feet of it. The creature must succeed on a DC 15 wisdom saving throw or be charmed by the dragon until initiative count 20 on the next round. Fizban's Treasury of Dragons introduces us to 2 more lair actions. The first is creeping vines. The dragon can use the vines and roots within its lair to animate up to 3 humanoid corpses, which become zombies. Their stats can be seen in the monster manual. The zombies take their turn immediately after this lair action. Each one reverts into a inanimate corpse after 1 minute, when the dragon uses the lair action again, or when the zombie is destroyed. The second one is Lashing Root. One large root or branch that is part of the lair makes a melee attack roll against a creature within 10 feet of it. It has +7 bonus on a hit, and it deals 10 or 3d6 bludgeoning damage on a hit. If the target is a medium or smaller creature, it must succeed on a DC 15 strength saving throw or be knocked prone. Since we just talked about the lair actions, let's go over the regional effects a green dragon gains. The first is thickets of labyrinthine passages within 1 mile of the dragon's lair. The thickets act as 10-foot high, 10-foot thick walls that block line of sight. Creatures can move through the thickets. With every 1 foot a creature moves, it costing it 4 feet of movement. A creature in the thickets must make a DC 15 saving throw once each round it's in contact with the thicket, or take 3 or 1d6 piercing damage from the thorns. Each 10-foot cube of thickets has an AC of 5, 30 hit points, resistance to bludgeoning and piercing damage, vulnerability to fire damage, and immunity to psychic and thunder damage. The next one is within 1 mile of its lair. The dragon leaves no physical evidence of its passages unless it wishes to. Tracking it there is impossible except by magical means. In addition, it ignores movement impediments and damage from plants in this area that are neither magical nor creatures, including the thickets described up before. The plants remove themselves from the dragon's path. And the last one mentioned in the monster manual is rodents and birds within 1 mile of the dragon's lair serve as the dragon's eyes and ears. Deer and other large game are strangely absent, hinting at the presence of a naturally hungry predator. And like with everything else, Fizban's Treasury of Dragon introduces us to 2 more regional effects. The first is Inviting Whispers. Whispers rustle in the foliage within 1 mile of the dragon's lair. The words are indistinct, but a creature with an intelligence score of 5 or higher interprets them as an invitation to move deeper in the greenery. And the last one is Twisted Messengers. The dragon can cause a tiny beast within 1 mile of its lair to act as its mouthpiece. This effect is horrendous, as the creature's throat and mouth temporarily warp into a twisted version of the dragon's own in order to allow the dragon's voice to issue forth. Now let's get to the meat of the videos, where we discuss the stat sheets of the green dragon. Let's begin with the green dragon wormling. Unlike the white and black dragons, green dragons tend to raise their young. They see themselves in them, and if their child does something extraordinary, then they feel great pride in knowing that they played a part in it. At this age, green dragons are exploring their surroundings and looking for the best place to hunt. The coloration of their scales allow them to camouflage themselves in the forests. They would prefer to hunt at night and use their swimming abilities to ambush their prey. Usually at this age, the dragon is most likely staying at their parents and is preparing itself to look for a territory of its own. In Pathfinder, the wormling stage of the dragon does not exist, but there are some unofficial stat sheets out there which you could use for this dragon. Next is the young green dragon. This is when the dragon is out in the world looking for a suitable place to build its first lair and acquire its first hoard. They prefer forested areas and will most likely be found there. At this stage, the green dragon starts to establish its network of spies and minions to figure out what's happening around its surroundings. This is the age when the green dragons will first come into conflict with a forest-dwelling creatures that might oppose it. According to Pathfinder, the green dragons at this stage are capable of shape-changing, and if we follow Fizban's Treasury of Dragons, we can give the chromatic dragons the shape-changing abilities as well. The spell that green dragons are most likely to use is invisibility, and you can bet that they will use it to spy on its enemies, and some might even spy on their own minions. Any encounter with the green dragon from this stage would most likely start with the green dragon being invisible. Imagine your party stopping by a lake in a forest which is nearby a green dragon's lair. The dragon casts invisibility on itself and swims towards your party and surprise attacks them with its breath weapon. Unless the dragon has the advantage, it will always start with using its breath weapon, and in situations that it doesn't, it will most likely save it for when it needs to make a quick escape. And next is the adult green dragon. At this point, the dragon has established itself and its network of minions. It also has multiple layers spread out across the forest or in multiple forests. Neighbors of the dragon know of its existence, but cannot seem to pin it down. The dragon most likely has its claws in its neighbors' political and economical pots. I once read about a green dragon that had amassed so much power that the neighboring city was basically run by the dragon, and if the dragon were to die, the city would not be able to support itself. These are the types of plots your typical green dragons are involved in. I've also seen some examples of green dragons run the criminal side of civilizations. They might also run Thieves Guild. The green dragon still prioritizes its secrecy and will not reveal itself to those it seeks to manipulate. This is also the age that they become considered legendary creatures. Their regional lair actions and come into effect. They also gain legendary resistances. I like to think of green dragons either as druids or as spellcasters when they are in combat. Due to their regional effects, some settlements might welcome a green dragon close to them. As mentioned before, in combat, dragons will try to surprise attack and will either keep its breath weapon reserved or a spell reserved to escape. A warning, though, many green dragons won't be as keen to run away, as doing so will lower its reputation, and it would mean that it will have to abandon most of its plans that it has spent years planning and bringing to fruition. And lastly, we have the ancient dragons. At this stage of its life, the plans it had seeded long ago are coming to fruition. This is when it has full dominion of all the creatures that live in its territory. An ancient green dragon might have taken over large forests and might visit each after a few years to not let the territory run out of food. The party will not be able to approach the green dragon without it knowing. If you watched Critical Role, then Raishan is the perfect example of what a green dragon should be like. One thing I forgot to mention is that in the Pathfinder version, green dragons can use its horn to attack. The network it established is now so large that the amount of information they provide the dragon is immense. Not much changes in its fighting style other than it is willing to take on more hits than before. At this point, the dragon is not afraid of fleeing if it feels like it will lose a battle, as it has contingencies in place that should anything go wrong, also since most of its goals have already been met. Now let's take a look at the spells that the dragon is likely to know. The base stat sheet of the green dragons in D&D does not provide us with any spells that the green dragon might have. This gets resolved in Fizban's Treasury of Dragons, as it gives us a table with suggested spells for different age ranges. In Pathfinder, the spells are added into the base stat sheet in both editions. Before Fizban's and even today, I use Pathfinder green dragons as inspiration for my D&D green dragons when it comes to giving them spells. Before moving on to the last section of the video, I'd like to give a little critique, as I was disappointed with the Pathfinder version of the green dragons in terms of what it tells us outside of its stats. The first edition bestiary only gives us a small paragraph with 4 lines, and in the second edition, while it has more text, it does not flesh it out, and like the other Pathfinder dragons I've covered. And now let's move on to the last section of the video, where I go over some notable green dragons. First up, we have Aetherfox, an astronomer by trade. This great worm green dragon maintains an observatory near Sinara in the Whisper Woods of Sheliax. There she struck a deal with House Thrune, where she agreed to instruct a handful of apprentices. After a few years of instructions, these apprentices vanished one night, taking volumes of the dragon's crucial notes, a slight she has not forgotten and plans to seek vengeance for. Next, we have Kayan Bloodbane, a deeply cunning ancient green dragon with an exacting sense of malice. He is a charismatic creature, but flattery is only one of his many weapons. During the War of the Lance on the Ward of Kryn, Kayan Bloodbane used one of the orbs of dragonkind to poison the minds of the elf king Lorak, causing the land of Sylvanesti to become swallowed up in Lorak's nightmares. The green dragon has no particular loyalty to Tiamat or dedications to her cause. His actions are in his own best interests. And next we have Claugiliamatar, aka Old Gnawbones. This ancient dragon rules over the Crypt Garden Forest in the Sword Coast. And we have Kuth, aka the Emerald Assassin. This dragon has allied itself with the Cult of the Dragon. And lastly we have Venomfang. This dragon lives in an old wizard's tower in the ruins of Thunder Tree Village. And with that, we have come to the end of the video. Before I sign off, just something I noticed while trying to dig up some information for this video. The monster manual, Fizban's Treasury of Dragons, the bestiaries for both the first and second edition of Pathfinder do not have a lot of lore mentioned when discussing this dragon. I do not know why this is the case. If you guys know the reason, leave them in the comments down below. And yeah, with that, we've come to the end of the video. Leave a like, subscribe, comment down below if you have any questions, any suggestions. The next video after this is going to be a high school DxD video. I'm probably going to be focusing a little bit more on that, maybe 2 or 3 videos before I go back to another dragon video. And so yeah, keep a lookout on that, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.